What is the most important life lesson, or what is the most important lesson life has taught you so far? That life's not fair.
Mm,
Life is wickedly not fair. And so it's your job to be able to work with that.
mm,
Where someone might get something, or they might get a job, or they might get a promotion, or they might have an extra opportunity than you do.
okay.
That's just that's life.
Yeah. So fair to you is more of equality than equity. So everyone
Yes.
everyone getting equally instead
Yes.
of, because I've heard it go both ways where people are like, well, they might need this more than you need it.
Well, and sometimes that happens,
Mm-hmm.
right? Where you look at two people and you go, they might need this more right now.
Mm-hmm.
Where at some other point you might get left out because someone else needs the opportunity.
Right. And so, how do you deal with maybe jealousy comes with that, with
Mm-hmm.
it being unfair? How do you navigate that emotion that comes with that?
You you resign yourself to knowing that you're probably envious,
Right.
and you work to move on from that, because if you
Mm,
can't move on from that, then it's going to continue to be this stumbling block that creates bitterness, and it creates malice, and it creates strife, and all these other things that come from jealousy.
mm,
And then you're just a bitter old person who doesn't want kids on their lawn.
right. Know a few of those. Yeah.
How do you define a meaningful life, and do you feel you're living one? Um, my definition of meaningful life um, has kind of changed since high school. Right now, as I see it, it's one where I'm able to use my gifts and talents to help others.
Mm,
We are given these abilities. Everyone uniquely has something that they're good at. We might not know it now, but in 20 years, it might show up. And then, are you willing to use that gift to help others in some way, shape, or form?
right. Someone once said that there's no greater gift than giving.
Mm-hmm.
Very common phrase.
Yep.
So like your passions and your talents are for the benefit of others rather than just yourself.
Right.
That's good.
And you may get paid for it, right? If I'm
Hmm.
if I'm a counselor and I'm working in a different capacity, I want to get paid,
Right.
but you're still using it for some good. Or when someone pops in, or you get a phone call and you're like, "Hey, I've got this issue going on. Can we work through it real quick?" Sure. That's just they're coming to me. They
Hmm.
recognize that that's my skill. Where me, I need a brake line fixed. I don't know how to fix a brake line. I'm going to go to someone else who understands and knows that piece.
Right. So how do you keep your passion in helping people? Because a lot of people's motivation starts there and then it changes to kind of agreed.
Um, hmm. How do I keep that passion?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know how I keep it.
Just sticks
It's
with
just
you.
you choose to keep going, right? Most people experience burnout in one way, shape, or form,
Hmm.
and you got to keep moving past that or taking some time off. At my old, in my previous position, I knew I needed a week off every 6 months, and I was going to take it at Christmas, and I was going to take a week off at Memorial Day. I needed that time to
Hmm.
not be thinking about work, and I think some of that is kind of managing your own burnout. So managing burnout is how I keep my passion, I guess.
Okay. Um, so aside from your passion, there's a lot of emotional issues that kind of come up, not only because you see like the worst of what people
Mm-hmm.
bring to you, like they bring you their issues and their problems. How do you manage that, um, feeling all of that negativity kind of around
Sure,
you?
the weight of it.
Yeah.
Um, I think understanding that my work is not my life.
Mm,
My work at time consumes me, and I understand that. But most of the days when I leave work, I'm leaving work here and resting on the fact that I've done the right things before I left. I've made the hard phone calls I needed to, or sent the
mm,
difficult emails, knowing that okay, it's not going to weigh on me because I'm trying to do the right things.
okay.
If I could go back in time and give my younger self one piece of advice, what would it be? Actually, there's two. One is be courageous to stand up for others. There were moments in school where I felt like looking back, I should have stood up for someone who might have needed standing up for, out of fear of being persecuted or made fun of or worried about what other people might think of me. I probably should have just done the right thing.
Mm,
Knowing 20 years ago, no one cares. No one's going to remember that. And if they do, then at least it would have been for doing the right thing.
right.
Two, invest in Apple, Amazon, and Microsoft. Invest. If you can set money aside to start a retirement plan at 18, 25 bucks a month from whatever job you're working, do it because it's going to pay off. So seniors, find a financial investor early on, even if it's 10 bucks or 20 bucks a month, whatever you can afford, do it.
Mm. I know a few kids that started saving up and investing a couple of
Mm-hmm.
years ago when they started working.
I should. I
Very
I
sad.
wish I would have started sooner.
Yeah, I need to do
So
that.
yes, invest. What has been my greatest source of joy and why? Again, kind of a two-part thing. One, understanding my purpose. It took a long time for me to figure out what my purpose was. I wanted to be a physical therapist, and I worked from high school 10 years trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I couldn't get into physical therapy school. I'd done all these physical therapy hours. I'd done athletic training hours, observing and job shadowing, and I couldn't get into PT school. And it was only when I asked myself, what what am I good at? Not skill wise, but just naturally. It was listening. And then I went to counseling school. And it was about 30 years old before I really understood what my purpose was, what my gift was. So that's been joyous. And then obviously being with my family. Um, they're awesome and they're funny and we laugh a lot. We play games. There's good times and bad times, but through it all, they're the people that when I walk in the door, um, they smile when they see me.
So navigating kind of the purpose. How would you recommend someone pursue purpose? Like try to find theirs.
Um, I think it's taking an honest look at yourself. What are you really good at? What is it something that you enjoy doing? We don't want to go to work just to go to work. Like there has to be if you go to work with the sense of I like what I do. So maybe that's where we start is you go, what do I like doing? Do I like talking to people? Do I not like talking to people? Do I like working with my hands? Do I like problem solving? Um, do I like just staying busy? Do I like working with computers? Do I like working with kids? Something is going to come to mind.
Mm,
Do I like drawing, art? Like there's so many different ways to define purpose where you can help others. So that's where I would start is what is it that you might be good at? Because I wanted to help people. That's why I wanted to actually originally I wanted to be a surgeon.
hey.
Uh, I knew pretty early on in high school that that wasn't going to be the case. Actually, before that, I wanted to be third baseman for the Boston Red Sox.
It's a good goal.
Uh, I'm not sure the Red Sox are going to hire a 5'7", skinny, slow kid
Hey, there've been
to play second base. So that fell out the window. Then I wanted to be a surgeon. Then I wanted to be a PT, and now obviously a counselor. Those last three, what they have in common is I wanted to help people, and so my definition of helping people kind of evolved over time from physically helping people when they're sick to physically helping people when they're injured, and now emotionally helping people when they're struggling with something. And so that's kind of stayed consistent as I knew that I just wanted to help people. In
Mm.
what capacity? That's kind of changed over the years.
Okay. So, a couple questions.
Mm-hmm.
First one is, um, so we know that emotional, physical, like spiritual healing,
Mm-hmm.
it's all intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you have emotional issues, you have physical issues
Mm-hmm.
usually. What are some ways that you can keep yourself physically healthy that might help your emotional health?
Oh, eating right. Not going for that Twinkie at 10:30 at night. I think just being active, finding some way to move, whether it be parking in the farthest spot in the grocery store, um, to
In the bitter cold.
in the bitter cold, to um, making an effort to walk your trash down to the road instead of putting it on the trunk of your car and driving it down.
Mm.
You know, some way to be moving. So I was a personal trainer. It doesn't look like it now, but I was a personal trainer for 4 years, and so um, getting people to do the simple things rather than make it all complicated, and you start doing plyometrics and subsets and all these fancy terms in the workout world. Just start by moving and maybe not taking seconds
Or thirds or
or
fourths.
thirds or sevenths. Wrestlers are different once they've made weight.
Yeah.
Then they can eat as much as they want. But
I gained like 10, 12 pounds after I weighed in. Um, my next question is, so I've one thing that we've said in my family is, um, the closer you are to God, the closer um, your desires align.
mm-hmm.
So, how has obviously you lead youth across the street? How has your relationship with God kind of affected your purpose?
Well, I think understanding the basic principle of faith is understanding, working to understand what you can't see,
Mm.
and understanding that if we submit ourselves and resign ourselves to knowing we can't do it all, that there's a higher purpose, God, higher power, whatever we want to call it. I know what I call it, but there is a spiritual aspect to purpose and meaning in living, whether you believe it or not now, but there is. And so when I approach this idea of wellness of a person, it's physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. And oftentimes that spiritual part gets left out. So my relationship with God is everything. That defines my purpose. And so I guess that would play a large role in how I view life, how I view people. If I view people as created as special and unique, the way I approach people is going to be different.
Mm. Less prone to judgment.
Yeah, yeah. Whether I agree with them or not, there's still this level of empathy and care because they are created by the Creator.
Mm. One thing I hear quite often is I need to focus on myself. I
Mm,
need to focus on myself. How do you care for other people and then also prioritize your own health and well-being?
mm. Yeah, this idea of self care is really kind of prevalent. Mental Health Day implies that you need to take care of yourself. I had a a professor in college. It was a botany class. Hated botany, and it was a Korean professor who had just immigrated to the United States. So he was difficult to understand. It was a boring subject. No one wanted to be there. Maybe one person, and it was a hard class. He made it super difficult. So when you have a class that's just kind of like you already feel down and out, and you know that your grade is going to go up because everyone's being graded on a curve at that point. Um, it just doesn't make the class a lot of fun. And so I didn't take it all that seriously. And we were in the lab one day doing some experiment, and he didn't like the way we were acting or something. And he looked at me in front of the entire class and goes, "What do you want to be when you leave here?" And I said, "Well, I either want to be a doctor or a physical therapist." And I had just bombed this test, right? And I was not the only one that didn't pass. And he looked at me and he says, "How are you going to help others when you can't help yourself?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was so mad. I was the biggest insult I had ever heard in my entire life because it was botany. It was plants. I didn't want to be there. I was taking it because at the time my major required it. And I was mad for a long time, years and years and years, until I figured out that that was actually true.
Mm-hmm.
That if I'm not well, I can't help other people. And so it's this juggling act because there are days where I don't want to be here. You could probably ask any teachers. When you're counseling sick or when you're teaching sick, it's not fun.
Yeah.
But at the same time, there's this persistence and this perseverance. And if we keep our overarching purpose in mind about what we're here for, it becomes a lot more bearable. So, yeah, are there times where we have to work on ourselves? Absolutely. Whether it's through deep breathing or reading or taking a walk when we're upset, something. We have to take care of ourselves because in order to live out our purpose to the fullest, we have to make sure we're taken care of.
Mm.
So I guess that would be my short answer,
Right.
short and long answer.
It's kind of not so much not taking care of other people because you have to take care of yourself, but finding a
Right,
mix.
right. I mean, even Jesus went off to pray
Mm-hmm.
and be by himself.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important aspect where we don't want to make taking care of ourselves the priority. And nothing teaches you that more than having a family.
Mm-hmm.
If my kids are sick, Mrs. Austin and I, we still have to take care of the kids.
Mm-hmm.
And still.
Please wait till you're out of high school to have children. This is just a PSA.
Yes, wait. Yes.
Don't
Wait
rush.
to have
Don't
children.
rush.
Don't rush that phase, okay? But if I'm sick, the kids still need to be taken care of.
Right.
And so there's priorities that kind of step in at that point.
All right.
How do you deal with moments of doubt or uncertainty in your life? You pray and you keep moving forward.
Like that.
we have no choice,
Mm-hmm.
right? As much as we want to think the world really cares about us, there might be certain people that care about us.
Mm-hmm.
But the world doesn't care about you. The world is going to move on regardless. So this is where you have to trust that we're going to make the right decisions, that that there's a plan for us, and you keep moving forward in whatever direction you're doing. There's been plenty of times where I've felt down and out, and I go, okay, let's do this. but we have to keep moving, because if we sit still for too long, then we become stagnant,
And that's worse than
and that's worse
anything.
than not doing anything.
Mhm.
Now, there's a lot of things that go into that being stagnant, or just staying in neutral. Could be fear, most likely fear,
Mm,
from the counselor perspective.
right.
Fear of failure, fear of what other people are going to say. You name it. It's probably a fear that's holding you back. But we just got to keep persisting, keep keep moving forward.
What's the largest fear that you see, probably percentage wise? We kind of talked about this.
Two major things. One, fear of what other people are going to think of me.
Mm,
Again, been in high school. I walked these same halls. I've had the same teachers.
mm,
My times have changed, certainly, but was I afraid of what people were going to think if I did something? Absolutely. It was only it was only when I was a senior in high school that I started to branch out, because I didn't care what the underclassmen
right.
thought of me. It's a lot harder to do that earlier on, and I wish I would have done that. What was the question?
Two biggest fears.
Fears. Um, Fear of what other people are going to think, and fear of failure. Fear of failure is a huge one that I see, not only my time here, but my counseling outside of here.
Mm,
And that's across the board. We're talking kids, we're talking teens, adults, elderly. The oldest person I've seen is well, at the time was 88 years old,
mm,
and it was a fear of failing her kids and her grandkids. You wouldn't think that. So that's persistent across the board, where if we think we're going to fail, we have a hard time with that. And so it's getting comfortable failing. It's being okay with failing, and recognize that just because we fail something doesn't mean we're a failure. Those
mm,
are two different things. And when we look at, like, stock market might have a really bad day. And if we take a 1 day glimpse of what's happened, you're like, I'm not invested in that. I'm not buying in that.
mm,
Look at how much it's gone down. And yet, if we look at the course of 80 years, it's gone up 10 million% or whatever.
mm.
And so we have to understand that just because we fail something doesn't mean we're a failure. And that holds people back. That seems to be a big fear.
Okay. So you kind of went through how to navigate the failure aspect. How would you navigate the judgment? How would you overcome that fear?
I think it's understanding that there are some things we are okay defending. And there are some things that we don't care if people judge us for. I love baseball. There are a lot of people that do not like baseball, and that's okay. But if they want to judge me because I like baseball, then let them do it. Especially being a Red Sox fan, I get a lot of hate, and so I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter. Whereas there might be a topic that's the root is an insecurity of some sort.
Mm,
Maybe the way I look, or the way I talk, the way I laugh, something along those lines, where if it becomes vulnerable and we already think we're bad at it, or we already think that our hair doesn't look good, or we already think that our voice sounds wonky, we're we're going to be more prone to hide those things.
mm.
So it's we can fight judgment. It depends on how well we can fight our own insecurities.
Okay, that's good.
So if we can be okay with how we look, if we can be okay with the things we can't change, can I change my laugh? I can't change my laugh. Yeah, and really, sometimes I'm a really loud person, and it's hard to tone that down. I don't realize I'm loud. That's just me. If
Mm,
someone wants to judge me based off of that, then so be it. But 20 years ago, that's a lot that's more difficult to do.
mm.
So if we can be okay with the things we're insecure about and learn to love ourselves for our insecurities and not care what maybe some of the people think around us, all of a sudden we don't worry too much more about judgment.
Where do you think insecurities stem from mostly?
Um, Insecurities tend to stem from what's called negative core beliefs. So these are, or ants, automatic negative thoughts, and these are things that would be like, I'm stupid, I'm ugly, no one loves me, um, I'm a failure, uh, I'm abnormal, something along those lines. And those tend to come. I mean, I don't think we're born with those things. We don't. We don't know we have a funny laugh until someone tells us we have a funny laugh.
Mm.
We don't know we have bad hair until someone tells us we have bad hair,
As
right?
trivial as those things are.
As trivial as those things are, those are the things that people loop themselves on. That's what they get caught up in.
Mm.
And so the moment someone points that out, now it's stuck there.
Mhm.
And it can grow and grow and grow and becomes this much bigger thing where now I'm worried to go in a job interview because my hair looks bad.
Right. So how do you construct somebody so if their hair looks bad or if they have stinky breath,
Mm-hmm.
how do you construct them positively rather than breaking them down and causing these insecurities?
Well, you start by getting them to okay, recognize the thought, and then you go to understand, okay, how do they relate emotionally and behaviorally? What how do I act when I have this thought?
Mm.
But then you take it a step further and you go, who can I imagine saying this to me? It might be a coach. It might be a friend, or it might be a peer, but it might just be one person. And you go, okay, how much validity are we going to give to this person? How much power are we going to give this person over my thoughts?
Mm.
Now, it might not be if someone comes to me and says, Mr. Austin, you have bad breath. I probably should consider that they're not being mean.
Right.
They might be trying to help me. Or if they're saying, your hair is kind of messed up, or you got the wrong shoes on, or something. I don't
Mm.
know. We have to consider that what they're telling us is beneficial for us to hear.
Mm.
If we understand that what we're listening to is not beneficial for us, we need to be able to let that go.
It's all interpretation.
You have to understand interpretation. Yes. If someone is trying to be mean to you that is normally mean to you, it's probably not beneficial for you to take on that thought. If your friends tell you you're pretty and the bully says that you're not pretty, who are we giving the power to? The people that know and love you best,
Right.
or the people who person that has no interest in your well-being?
Mm. I also think that there's a fine line though because there's also my grandma's always going to tell me that I'm the most handsome 17-year-old
Sure,
man in the world. So
sure.
I still think that there's maybe validity in other like strangers' thoughts,
Yeah.
but maybe they're not out of a place of care.
Yeah,
Maybe
and
that's the big
so
difference.
that's why when we go, our parents are supposed to say that, right? Our parents are supposed to tell us we're pretty.
Right.
Um like that's just what parents usually, not all parents, but parents usually do that, and we go, that's why we don't take any stock in that, because they're supposed to say those things. But when we have our friends or a stranger even on the street that's like, hey, you got nice hair, or your shoes look cool, you tend to take more stock in that because they don't have to tell you that.
Mm.
They're going out of their way to tell you that. So certainly, yes, grandmas are supposed to say some of those kind things. which is why they don't tend to hold a lot more weight. But we also have to go, who are we going to trust? Are we going to trust grandma who, yeah, has my best interest in mind, or someone who continues to pick on me and has for years, and we know that they have nothing beneficial to say in this moment
Mm.
other than to tear me down.
And that takes a lot of confidence, being able to.
It takes confidence.
Um, one thing that I've learned recently is that false confidence is better than no confidence.
Mhm.
Even things like adjusting your posture or just being uncomfortable in a social situation and
Mhm.
being okay with being uncomfortable. They um, increase your serotonin. They make you a calmer
Mhm.
person.
Mhm.
What are some steps you would take to become more confident?
Act like it.
Act like it.
There's a counseling strategy called acting as if, right? And you take the quality that you're not so good at and you act as though you have those qualities. And over time it becomes this confident boost. You might not be that, right? If I walk into a job to be a surgeon and I acted like a surgeon, it doesn't mean I'm going to get the job.
Mm.
It just means that I'm probably having some confidence going into that interview. Um, if I'm playing baseball and I tell myself this guy's throwing 95 miles an hour, if I tell myself I can't hit it, what's going to happen?
You're not going to hit it.
Probably not going to hit it. If I tell myself, okay, I've trained for this, this is a challenge, I'm going to do it, I still may very well strike out. However, I've gone up, not defeated already. If you're wrestling number one wrestler in the state and you go, well, I'm done for, yeah, chances are you're going to lose. But if we walk in not with arrogance, but with confidence, and we go, I'm going to give this guy a run for his money. I, I've got nothing to lose. He's got everything to lose. You probably make a much better effort um, at winning.
Mm.
Just because you have confidence doesn't mean you're always going to accomplish what you set out to do. But that's where the whole failure versus failed comes into play.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Relationships.
Ugh. I'm
What
sorry I had to put this in here.
what have you learned about love and connection through your experiences? Um, Knowing and understanding that you are loved by at least one person can build confidence.
Mm.
We talked about confidence. Knowing you have that support unconditionally unlocks so many benefits. And it allows you to, knowing that they're behind you and they care for you, regardless of what failures happen, they allow you to be the best person you can be. And that's really important because relationships are not about what they can do for you, it's what you can do for them.
Mm.
It is not always going to be 50-50. It rarely is 50-50. There are times where we have to be the person carrying the load.
Mm.
There are times where we have to submit and rest in the fact that we're doing this because we care about the other person. You're going to see a theme as I talk, right? As we go through this interview, it's not about myself, it's about others. And there are some days where I have to pull more of the load, and there are days where Mrs. Austin has to do her fair share of the load for whatever reason. But it's this give and take, and it's this understanding that we are there to serve. We are there to be the hands and feet for them when they can't. That's that's the important thing about connection and building relationships.
Mm. Not only romantic relationships, but
This
also
is
friendships, rapport between
friendships, yeah. Yeah.
boss and employee. And
Yeah, because there may be days where you're like, well, my friend hasn't reached out. They don't seem to care about me. Well, maybe they have things going on. maybe, and maybe they aren't your friend. I don't know. The purpose of being a friend is to serve and to give. It's not always what you can get out of it.
Mm.
So, how do you build and maintain trust in relationships? Three things. One, um, do what you say you are going to do. You say you're going to go to the store, you better well go to the store. If you say that you're going to take care of a situation, you better make sure that you take care of those things. Let your yes be yes and your no be no. um, two, learn to forgive. People are always going to hurt you. You're always going to be offended by something that someone does. Learn to forgive. And three, be honest, but do it in a way that's kind. I said earlier, make sure that what we're saying is beneficial for the other person to hear.
Mm.
Always. If it's not going to benefit them, then you need to keep your mouth shut.
You don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all.
Yes. Yes. Because there are going to be heated moments where we say things and it's going to tear someone else down, especially someone we love.
Mm.
And so when we're maintaining this idea of trust, we want to know the other person always has our best interest in mind, regardless of how hard the conversation or the action has to be. If we can't say things in a nice way while still maintaining honesty, you're going to lose that trust. It will fall. It will fail. What do I believe is the key to lasting and fulfilling relationships? Humility. Be willing to admit your faults when you have to admit them. Because when we trust someone, when we love someone, um, we have to be able to say I'm sorry when we need to say I'm sorry.
Mm.
And then two, laugh a lot.
Yep.
Have the inside jokes. Um, I hope, to my wife, I hope I'm the funniest person on the face of the earth. That's what I hope. If we laugh, then we're going to be able to make it through. It's when the laughing stops, that's when life becomes way too serious. Life is already serious. But if we can't laugh during some of this stuff, then life is going to be really hard.
Mm. Making light of. Well, that's even outside of relationships. I think that's important.
Yeah, it's good to laugh. Laughing is great. Maybe not always laughing at someone else's expense,
Right.
but if I see a funny video, I want to share it with someone, and I'm usually sending it to people if I find it funny, because I want that connection. I want them to laugh because I want to laugh. So yeah. Who's had the greatest impact on my life and what did they teach you? That's a tough question because I think in different times in my life, people have been impactful. It's not just always been one person for me. It's been moments where people have been really impactful. They've either said something or they've gone out of their way to help me, whether it be in college, my professor who, when my schedule changed and I wasn't going to graduate and I needed one class, he did an independent study with me. He didn't have to do that.
Right.
But I wanted to graduate. He said, let's make this happen. So we did it. Or my mentor, who, when I was thinking about counseling school, sat down with me and we had this conversation. And then all of a sudden, he's now my counseling supervisor and now my mentor, and probably the world's greatest counselor that I know. When my back was against the wall, he fought for me. Or growing up, my parents, when I used to play catch with my dad. Super impactful. And so different moments, different times in my life people have been.
Right place, right time.
Yeah. Well,
Uh,
well,
Desi-
we know
yeah,
people get put into our lives for a reason.
right. Design.
It's designed.
So, kind of stemming off of that, the importance of being in the moment,
Mm-hmm.
not being tapping on our phones. Do you think that if that was an issue when you were growing up, how do you think that would have impacted your life? How it would have changed it?
Yeah, we didn't have cell phones. I mean, it's weird to say, but 20 years ago, well, let's see, how long have I been graduated? 19 years in June. We didn't have cell phones. And if you did, you were like amazing and rich. But there weren't many kids. It was not a problem here. It probably would have kept me from experiencing things that how do I want to phrase this? It would have kept me away from the moments that were important. And now it's interesting. Like if I go to a Tiger game, right? I'm more worried about capturing the moment on my phone than just sitting and enjoying the moment for what it is. Yeah. And while we think we're doing one thing, so there are times where it's like, this is a really special moment. I'm gonna put my phone away and I'm just gonna sit in this. And I think we need that. I think that's probably the biggest challenge there with staying in the moment is we mean well, or maybe we don't mean well at times. But for me, I mean well, but then I miss the joy of being there. When you're cheering for, with 50,000 people on opening day, it's a pretty special moment.
Yeah.
And we do that in our lives all the time. We miss these small things, these small opportunities to have conversations. Or my kids are playing trucks with me or something. And I get a text message and I'm like, oh, I gotta answer this. And they're like playing. I'm missing those moments at times. So um but that's my own battle that I have to deal with, yeah.
I think everybody deals with that. So kind of turning it around, are there any moments that you wish you had captured, or that you wish you had not been in?
No,
No.
no, not that I can think of.
So that's interesting because you don't value it any less because it's captured. You don't value it any more because it's captured.
Right. And if we're so I think life is what it's gonna be. And if we don't take the time to appreciate some of these things, I think that's when you have regret. Um, I had my last two great grandparents. My one grandma was in a nursing home, um, and I just got my driver's license, and I thought, I should go see her, and I never did. She was there for like 2 years, and I went and saw her like once or twice. And so when she passed, that was like one of the biggest regrets I had. And so I had one more great grandparent left, and I went, well, I'm going to go see her every chance I get. And so any moment I had, I was driving to Belding to go see my great grandma. And we'd get Burger King. She loved Burger King. Just this tiny lady. Whopper Jr., no pickles, side salad, French dressing. That was her order. And we would go up and we'd just sit. And then eventually she got put in a nursing home. And the week she passed away, um, I had been up there 6 or 7 times. She was only there a few months. And that last, it was just a few days before she passed away. And she didn't even talk to me. We just sat there and I held her hand and we watched Price is Right. And I think those are the moments that maybe I would have missed, but I value them because I learned how precious those moments are. You only get one chance. As Eminem says, don't need your chance to flow because opportunity only comes once in a lifetime.
You get me copyrighted. You got to cut this.
Hey, I said Eminem said it.
All right.
Um, what time is it? I don't even know what time it is.
It is 8:32.
How long do we have? I got about 20 minutes.
Okay.
We talked about failure. How do you personally define success, and has your definition changed over time? We talked a little bit about this, but I think success is just becoming resilient to overcome challenges, overcoming obstacles. One of my favorite people to listen to is Dan Campbell, Detroit Lions head coach. Right, he comes in and he preaches resiliency, and he says he doesn't deny in his first interview that there are going to be hard times, but he says we're going to take a kneecap out on our way up, and we're going to get knocked down again, and we're going to get up, and we're going to smile. We're going to get knocked down. We're going to take the other kneecap. He got made fun of for that, but there's some credibility to that, where if we can understand that we're going to fail, and we can get back up again, keep trying, and we can be resilient, that's success.
And it seems to be working for him.
I've never seen this. I've seen a lot of bad Lions football. And so obviously everything's a stepping stone. The ultimate goal is to win in that game, and he's not going to go down without a fight. So that's what I appreciate there. What do you hope people remember about you after you're gone? I put that I was willing to listen. I might not always have all the solutions. I might not always be perfect. I might not be everyone's counselor, right? There are some people that might come in here that go, yeah, I don't want to talk to him. But I'm willing to listen if you're willing to talk. What advice would you give to the next generation? To you guys, be content but not complacent. Be thankful for what we have, right? I operate under the premise that life isn't fair, right? There are people that I went to college with who are wildly more successful than me. They're going to, one person in particular I think of, they're going to every Michigan football home game. They're going to national championship games. They're going to sporting events. They're taking trips to Europe, like wildly successful people. I don't have that. That's that's not that's not me. But if I can be content with what I have, right? Knowing that I'm working hard and doing the things that I need to do to run my life. But don't be complacent, because that leads to just sitting still. That leads to just not doing anything, and that leads to sitting on your talent or burying your talent in the ground and then digging it up later and go, hey, I kept your one talent, right? I didn't multiply that. I didn't do what I was supposed to. And so be content but not complacent. And then 2, understand that the people around you can impact your life greatly. I think I told the other day, my favorite quote is, it's hard to soar like the eagles when you're surrounded by turkeys.
Yep.
Understand that not everyone is going to be beneficial for you, and you need to be able to move away from those people. If you're around people who are making bad decisions, chances are you are going to start making those same decisions. If you surround yourself with people who care about you, and who want to see you succeed and are succeeding themselves, chances are you're going to be successful in that way. Um, what do you think the most important quality a person should develop? Resiliency, hands down. Hands down. The ability to overcome and keep working even when life gets tough, even when life gets hard. Resiliency is so important to being able to work through. If we say we can, we might. If we say we can't, we won't.
It's the quote that says the man who says he can and the man who says he can't, they're both right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. There's a, that's very true. How do you find balance or peace in the chaotic world? We kind of touched on that. I like to play catch, my ball glove, a baseball, find someone to throw a ball with. I like to cook. I like to be in the kitchen making stuff. I like to see people enjoying the food that I make. It makes me feel good. And 3, I like to play games with my kids. It's fun to see them kind of step out of their comfort zone. It's fun to see them strategize. It's fun to see them think deeply about what they want to do, what character they might pick, or um, what their next move is, and that's really fun to kind of see them grow. Or hang out with my wife. I like hanging out with my wife. We've been together a very long time, so she's
Since 8th grade, was that it?
I was in 8th grade and she was in 7th grade.
Crazy.
So it's been a long time. And no, just because you're in a middle school relationship doesn't mean you're going to have that. Okay? Don't try to replicate
not,
what I have.
Not everybody gets as
Not everyone gets that. What do you think the biggest misunderstanding people have about life? That life has to be fair and that things have to balance out. It doesn't. It doesn't, because people are corrupt and people are selfish and people have motives, and life is never going to be fair, ever. It doesn't mean we shouldn't fight for some of those things, but just because someone else has something doesn't mean we should have it or it would be beneficial for us to have.
Yeah. And then what in instances where you do get something someone else has without them giving it to you freely, or like I think about when I get a toy for Christmas when I was a kid, and my parents then get my brother the same toy the next time we have a holiday. Like, he's not grateful to have borrowed my toy that I'm playing with. So, and there's a lot of gratitude that kind of goes away with.
Yep. Absolutely. And then lastly, who's had the greatest impact on the construction of my morals? My parents and grandparents, hands down. There have been no greater influences for my sense of morality, my beliefs, my spiritual beliefs, my belief in Jesus Christ. My parents, they showed me quietly. It was not always with words. Did I get in trouble? Absolutely. But they did a good job at modeling what I should be like, how to stand up for people who are struggling, how to stand up for yourself when your back's against the wall, and then how to quietly go about your business and be a hard worker and provide for your family. And then obviously my grandparents were always there to support me. Grandma, even to this day, always has food for me and now my kids when we go up and visit. Sadly, my grandpa passed away a year ago, but being able to spend some time with them has shaped and molded and guided me. To hear their stories, to hear their wisdom that gets passed down. You know, we've talked about this before. Family Families have a distinct ability to shape our future decisions. right? Whether good or bad, we might say our dad does this, or my grandpa does this, and my dad did things differently, and he's teaching me how to do things differently.
Mm-hmm.
And so to be able to look back in the past and not get swallowed up by the earth and go, oh, that was a bad decision. I shouldn't do that.
Mm.
Um, we need to be always looking to past generations to figure out how to move forward. There's going to be someone there that shows us either the right way to do something or the wrong way to do something, and we need to be able to have the wisdom to figure out which one's the correct way.
Mm. So how would you recommend somebody who might not have a solid family that how would you recommend they look for that moral compass?
Well, I think if it's not your family, look to those friends. Who are your friends' parents that you might look up to? Who might be those people in your life that you would be like, that's my second grandma, or they didn't have to do this for me, but they were kind enough to take me in.
Mm.
It's going to your church or wherever you go to worship, finding a mentor, either spiritually, professional mentors. All these people have wisdom, and preferably someone who's a generation above you or 2 generations above you. Oftentimes, it's hard to give good, solid advice to your peers,
Yeah.
and it might not be what you're looking for because the experience isn't there. I mentioned earlier that the oldest client I had was 88 years old,
Mm-hmm.
and I was an intern, and so she was seeing me because no one else could take her insurance, and I couldn't bill for insurance. And she walked in and she goes, "What are you going to teach me? I already have way more experience
Mm.
than you." It was a really hard conversation. It was hard to hear because here I am 30 years old, 31 years old, talking to this woman who has lived almost triple my life.
Mm.
And I thought, and I went, okay, she's not wrong. I have to acknowledge that. But at the same time, just because you're young doesn't mean you don't have wisdom or see things from a different perspective. I had knowledge that she didn't, just like you have knowledge that I don't. If you are an expert in the field, then I should be able to humble myself and go, hey, what do you think of this? Now, not necessarily now, but like once you're in college, once you go on to be a doctor, like eventually I'm going to be 50 years old and you're going to be 30 and you're going to be the one potentially treating me. I have to resign myself to go, you know what you're talking about.
Mm.
And so just because you're young don't let anyone discredit you, but also know when to listen. And being younger, you should probably listen more than you talk.
Yep.
And there's a lot of wisdom in listening because when people open their mouth, that's when they sound stupid.
Yep.
um, so yeah, that would be my advice on that.
That's kind of what I'm doing here with the
Mm.
cameras is listening, giving people an avenue to listen.
Mm-hmm. And if people choose to listen, then great.
Mm.
If they choose not to listen, that's great as well. But I hope you find someone in your life that is willing to guide and direct you and help you.
Mm.
Because if y'all think you know what you're talking about, you don't, because I've been there. And there's a lot of poor decisions that happen.
Yeah.
Find someone in your life or multiple people in your life that can help direct you when you have a tough decision, that are going to be honest with you, but kind in their words.
Mm.
When someone says, I don't know if this is going to be a good fit for you, I wish someone would said that to me about PT, because a lot of people went, hey, you're going to be a good physical therapist someday. And I went, yeah, darn right I am. Heck yeah, I am. And yet,
Here you
well,
are.
here I am. I'm a counselor, which is great because this is probably where I was meant to be the whole time,
Mm.
had I known that. So find those people in your life that are going to help guide and direct you.
And also be that person for someone too.
Yeah, yeah, they're little kids. You've got little cousins.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking to you for what did he do when this happened, right? What your cousins are, the cousins that I know are
First grade and
first grade and
first
fourth
grade and
grade, or
four.
yeah, 4
Yeah,
and 1,
and one.
right? There's a huge generational gap there that eventually they're going to go, oh, hey, look, I have older cousins that I look up to that are doing awesome things.
Mm-hmm.
One's a doctor in Kansas working in biosecurity stuff.
Cool.
I have another cousin who's a physician's assistant who travels all over the country to go teach and to learn. I have another cousin who works so incredibly hard, and it may not be a job that people would say, "Oh, that's a really noble job," but you want to know what? He's a great dad, and he's a great friend who would drop anything to help. You know, there's so many unique abilities that we all have, and if we can all work together and recognize that we all have something to give, you may need something from the person you're bullying someday. They may be the person that becomes an EMT if you get into a car accident. They're the ones saving you.
Mm.
They may be the one teaching your children someday, right? I
Yeah.
work. That's the unique thing about coming back and working where you went to school.
Mm.
Is I see a lot of people I went to school with at parent teacher conferences and at baseball games and at sporting events and in the community. And so there's this there's this unique perspective that someday the person that you're treating poorly, you may need them because they have abilities that you don't.